at the wonderful Grand Canyon University Arena. I'm going to ask you to please rise right now for the presentations of our Nation Scholars by the Glendale High School Navy JROTC. Before they actually do that, though, we'd like to note that all these students from Glendale High are ours as well. In the Bell Regard, we have Satali Guadalupe from Harold W. Smith School. Benjamin Garcia from Desert Spirit. Ivan Guzman from Landmark. And Evelyn Rodriguez from Don Mensadek. Off to the side, and then joining us in a little bit, our Francisco Reyes, he's from American. And Jesus Deas from, also from Don Mensadek. Now, after they have posted the colors, we're going to ask you to please remain standing, as we're going to be led in the Pledge of Allegiance by Dylan Martinez-Reyes and Ashley Martinez-Reyes from William C. Jack, and Madeline Silva from Horizon School. Following that, our national anthem will be sung by Assistant Superintendent for Education Services, Dr. Jerry Peterson in Bravaya, and Bicentennial South Assistant Principal Tara Burnaby.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
Two.
1.
In a terrific industry. Process to start and a clean slate. And just before you know it, we're going to be knee-deep in another school year. So, before that happens, let's just take a moment, brief moment, to appreciate the trust our parents and community members put in us. For just a few seconds, put yourself in a singular act of faith. Unlimited walk them into the classroom for the very first time. So at that point in their timeline, whether it's a driver, someone in the school office, or a groundskeeper they pass along the way, or perhaps their very first teacher, but the tone is set for the next year. These seminal moments in the lives of our children and families, and in a few days we're going to be lucky enough to get to share them once again. So have fun, right? Now it's my pleasure to introduce you to members of our community. These 5 volunteers, elected by the members of our community, serve countless hours in service to our community and to our children. Please join me in welcoming our governing Mary Ann Wilson, our governing Monica Pimentel, governing board member Martel. Unable to join us, Aldama and Sarah Smith, but both of them send their best regards for you to get off to a great new school year. I'm also happy to introduce the members of the district's executive team, our superintendent, Cindy Sugata-Jones, our assistant superintendent for educational services, Dr. Jerry Peterson, assistant superintendent for human resources, Debbie Valdez, and Assistant Superintendent for Finance and Auxiliary Services, Mike Barry. And once again, we are in this wonderful facility thanks to our partners at Grand Canyon University. Joining us on the university's behalf is their development representative, somebody you guys probably know already, Josh Craig.
Looks like you all made it here safe. Great job transferring. It may have changed a little bit since you were here. GCU is really growing fast if you haven't seen it here in the area. Currently this year we're going to start 20,500 students on campus. There are 70,000 online students. We are the first generation in their family that are going to school. The long-term goal is to revitalize and stabilize west side of Phoenix and central Phoenix and bring more businesses here locally. We have a great partnership and we love GESD. We're so grateful for all the hard work we do. How we partner with you is a lot on tuition discounts and scholarships. If you're looking to go back to school for any kind of field, teaching, business, nursing, we have programs here available here on campus and also 100% online. If you have any questions about those, I'm your guy. I love you. as you have heard, my family comes from a rich heritage of educators. It started with my great-grandmother, who started washing dishes in elementary school once my grandfather passed away prematurely to help support her 9 children. My grandfather was a coach and my uncle was a school bus driver who recently retired. My mother just recently retired from education as a second-grade school teacher. So education is close to my heart. Always remember what you're doing is very important. The lives are changing. Always remember that you are raising the next generation, and we are so grateful for all your work, whatever capacity you are doing here in the district. Welcome to GCU.
And we welcome once again our Governing Board President, Mary Ann Wilson.
Good morning and welcome to all our new and returning staff. I hope you all had a wonderful summer and a restful one at that, and that you're ready for the exciting challenges of the 2018-19 school year. Well, the past few years have been exciting in the world of education. We're finally beginning to see some possible changes that can only happen in our schools. So I'm truly excited about the future of education. But more specific to USD, I'm excited about our future. We've seen some significant academic gains over the last years, and even though we know there's still more work to be done, I know I speak for the rest of the board when I say we're proud of those gains. And this year, I'm sure we're going to see even more. We're also proud of all of you. And whatever capacity you serve in the district, you all play an important role in the success of our students. Thank you for doing all that you do for our students, for all your hard work and your dedication. I hope you are as excited about the new school year as I am. I know my grandchildren are. They tell me every day, or at least every other day, how they can't wait for school to begin. So for me, this reinforces what I already know, and that's how important you all are in the lives of our students. So on behalf of the Governing Board, welcome to the new school year. We're here to support hard work and exciting new challenges that lie ahead. Have a wonderful day.
Scott Jones.
Good morning, GSD family. We have so much to celebrate this morning. I want to thank again our families that brought children to say the pledge for us. They are the children that will be participating in our. So thank you, Jack and Horizon, for doing this work. Our color guard has been so amazing that each of those students are our students here. That was amazing to know that. That was not planned. And of course, Tara and Jerry, thank you so much. Here at Glendale Elementary School District, I'm proud to say we grow our own. For the last 2 weeks, I've been so proud of us staff, new teachers and staff coming to Glendale. We have not only new teachers across many states, but we have 7 abroad teachers this year. I can't tell you how much I have enjoyed watching how each of you have embraced these students and shown them such great hospitality. Thank you so much. At this time, I would also like to express my deepest appreciation to the governing board for the confidence that you have demonstrated in your next superintendent. As Assistant Superintendent for Educational Services, I've been impressed by the untiring dedication and the effort of this governing board, by the dedication and professionalism of all you sitting in this room today, the overwhelming desire of our students to embrace their learning, and the commitment of our parents and our community to support our goals so that our children have a successful future. I am so happy today that we have our trust board and foundation here to support us. It is such an honor for you to support this district and work with us. I'm extremely proud of schools and their continued commitment to the high expectations that they have for students and the high academic standards that we've set. As recognized in our video this morning, we have much to celebrate here at GSD, not only in our but as an entire organization. Thank you so much for everything that you do. It is amazing to be here. I will applaud you. As we begin this school year, it's important to me that each of us we do as a district family and a community, we need to work as a collaborative organization to ensure our students have a successful future. In GSD, we work under the framework of professional learning community that emphasizes the importance of that collaboration. We've witnessed the power of that collaboration through our academic accomplishments, our financial solvency, teams that we will be able to work as an effective organization this team to make collaborative decisions. I encourage you to trust in this journey. While my role has shifted from assistant superintendent to now superintendent, I'm still Cindy Sagata Jones. My core beliefs and values remain the same. I view myself as a person of integrity. I believe in mutual respect and responsibility. I believe in learning. I sense hope for kids. I have a great sense of I have a strong sense of self-efficacy that refuses to allow me to make excuses performing. We can work as collaborative teams to ensure the students make progress. We have seen through the video of your teams that our academic achievement is improving. However, the data also tells us we still need to make gains, and we need to make those gains in working with our diverse populations. Looking at their performance, teacher efficacy is 3 times more powerful, predictive than the socioeconomic status of a child. Regardless of their background, all kids can and will learn in GSD. Dr. Cruz sharing his thoughts with us later about diversity and how we can support our children to be successful, as well as the support they need from not only the community but their families. If our motto is for all kids, and we must have that attitude that together we can make a difference for all students. I have high expectations for all of you here today. I live We will make a difference in medium for our families. For the last of an incredible educational journey. Over the years, I have come to realize, regardless of the position that I'm in, I must be able to answer one essential question, and that question is, what do kids get when they enter our schools? As we all prepare for that first day of school, ask yourselves, what will kids get from you? When that child gets on the bus, enters the cafeteria, is registering in front of us, enters her classroom, what do they get from you? Reflect on what that is that drives you each day to make a difference in a child's life. Reflect on what keeps you motivated to do what you do every day each year. My motivation is very simple. It comes from looking into the eyes of a child. A while back, I met this little boy who absolutely stole my heart. The first time I saw him, he just stared at me, unsure of what to expect from me. His face became etched in my mind, and I have never forgotten that. Decisions for kids with him in mind. Throughout my career, if the decisions I made were not good enough for that little boy, then those decisions were not good enough for me. That little boy who stole my heart about 22 and a half years ago is now a successful college graduate. He calls me Mom, and I call him Trey. I've always prided myself as an educator in making a difference, as if I were making the decisions for my own life. As a mom, when I sent Trey to school each day, I expected that his teachers would treat him with dignity. They would accept him for who he is. They would keep him safe in his learning environment. They would give him first best instructions every day. And at the end of the day, his father and I expected that we receive that same happy, excited little boy who wanted to learn every single day we sent him to school. As a superintendent of GSD, I expect those same things for every GSD student that sits in our classrooms this year. Although my own child is in school, I've not lost my motivation or my sense of hope for children. To meet another little boy. He is depending on all of us here today to make GESD the highest performing district. He believes this will happen within the next 5 years. He's a very smart little boy. He knows that research takes about This little boy calls me Nana, and I call him Brax. If GSD is not good enough for 2023, then it's not good enough for any child. This picture was taken in my office one afternoon when I convinced my family to help me move into my new office. In education, as all you teachers know, we do convince our families to come help us in classrooms. Perhaps convince is not the right, probably a bride in my family. But as we were cleaning up the office and getting ready for this new year, little bride, he's sitting there with his pipa. We call that a pipa in my house. Some of you call it pacifiers or binky stompers or boppers or whatever they are called. In our home, it's called a pipa. So he's sitting there, and I'm looking at him thinking, wow. In a couple of weeks, a little under over 13,000 students are arriving in GSD. And as a superintendent, I better have an answer of what they're going to get in our schools from each of us. Without hesitation, I can say they are getting the most nurturing, supportive, and talented educational family they could ever possibly wish for their children. As a GSD family, we accept each other's uniqueness, we embrace diversity, we support each other, and most of all, we believe in all of our kids. I ask that you respect and treat your students as if they were your own. They deserve the best, and I am committed to working with each of you to make GSD the best district in Arizona. I am honored and humbled to serve as a superintendent of this remarkable GSD family, and I look forward to continuing to work together on behalf of the children and families we serve. With that, let's have an amazing GSD year.
Okay, time to buckle up. It's time for our keynote speaker, Dr. Louise F. Cruz. Louise F. Cruz, PhD, is the former principal of Baldwin Park High School located east of Los Angeles, California. He has been a teacher and administrator at the elementary, middle, and high school levels. Dr. Cruz presents on methods from the best-selling book, Transforming School Culture, 2007, Dr. Cruz led a collective effort to secure a $250,000 grant from Baldwin Park from the California Academic Partnership Program for the purpose of effectively utilizing courageous leadership to promote a more equitable and effective organization. Since becoming a public school educator, Dr. Cruz has won the new Teacher of the Year, Administrator of the Year, and other community leadership awards. He and a committee of teacher leaders at Baldwin Park received California's prestigious Golden Bell Award from the California School Boards Association for significantly closing the achievement gap between the general student population and students learning English as a second language. As a recipient of the Hispanic Border Leadership Institute's Fellowship for Doctoral Studies, he earned a doctorate in Institutional Leadership and Policy Studies from the University of California, Riverside. He earned an associate's degree from Mount San Antonio Community College, a bachelor's degree from California State University of Fullerton, and a master's degree from Claremont Graduate University. Please welcome Dr. Luis Cruz.
Gracias. Muchas gracias. Buenos días. ¿Cómo están? Es un placer estar aquí con ustedes un día maravilloso, primer día, déjenme decirles. And please don't worry, I also speak English. We're good to go. That was a very nice introduction, but let's keep this real. I'm just a brother from another mother, seriously. And you folks know how to do this. My goodness, this is the first one. August is crazy busy for me. All summer long, I've been going around the country training and getting people ready academically and professionally for this amazing school year that we're going to have. But August is unique because August is when I get to be part of a school district again. And this morning, as I was parking the car, I was looking at all the shirts. Where are the elementary people at? Where are the middle school people at? Look at you with your shirts. It's like a rainbow from up here. Amazing. Everybody's ready to go. And before we get going, though, I really got to acknowledge the fact that your school district is doing something great. They're not just inviting teachers and administrators to this. We have some amazing support staff in the audience. So let's give in a big welcome back and thank you. Are the secretaries here? We have secretaries here? Clerical? Man, you better cheer harder because they control stuff. They control what you get and don't get. I say it again. Are the secretaries in the house? This next cohort of amazing people have been working all summer long in some crazy weather, getting your school ready. Maintenance and custodians. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for what you do. It's a big deal. Your weather is not easy to work in. And these folks got you ready. And last but not least, the teachers and administrators are back. Yeah. You are back. Very exciting, very exciting. Now, this is not my first visit with you. I was here with you about 4 or 5 years ago. Does anybody remember me? I was here with you. So it's not Buenos Dias, Glendale, Arizona. It's a pleasure to meet you again. And I got to be honest with you. I was very humbled by the tenacity of your new superintendent. She was calling me, and last night, hey, are you here this morning? Are you en route? Are you here? Right? And we had a really great conversation, and she was very proud of the fact that things are happening, yes? And here's the other thing. Here's what I've come to know about her. I've only known her for maybe a little bit, but she's a greedy superintendent. Now, let me define greedy for you. She's very happy of the growth that you all are generating. But she wants more, because this is the one profession where we can be ethically greedy. We want more of our kids to make it. Things have happened since the last time I was with you. I'm going to get personal with you if you don't mind, as we begin this conversation on closing the achievement gap, eliminating the achievement gap. Since the last time I was with you, this happened in my life. Thank you very much. And very special day. Now, some of you are looking at that thinking, Luis likes some young. That is not me getting married. That is me walking my daughter down the aisle. And it was, look at all the elementary people. Yes. And it was a great day. You know why? She chose the right guy. I can say this now, like very easily. She had loser boyfriends for a long time. My wife and I prayed continuously, please, not this one, God, not this one. And she chose the right guy, and ready for this? Maintenance guys, you'll appreciate he can fix stuff. So when I needed a new water heater at my house, my new son-in-law said, I got this. And I said, thank you, Lord, for him. Marcos is my new son-in-law, and I'm very proud of my daughter. Since the last time I was with you, this is what she does for a living now. She's a labor and delivery nurse. Yes, she does. Every day she brings in life. And it's fascinating because we have a tradition, my daughter and I. Once a month, we go to her favorite restaurant, very expensive place called the Cheesecake Factory. Yes? And her and I, it can only be her and I. Her sisters can't come, my wife cannot come, her husband, and we just sit down and we connect again because I miss her very much. And then she tells me what's going on in her life. The last time we got together, this is what she said. Dad, it was amazing. The doctor was late, and she was about to go, Dad. So me and another nurse said, we got to deliver this baby. And we delivered the baby. And we held this baby. And she's so excited as she's talking about this. And I'm thinking, one down, two more to go. Because I have two more daughters. These are my girls. I am the proud father of 3 daughters. Anali is the one to your right. And Anali, ready for this? She wants to be the first real doctor in the family. Because apparently I'm not a real doctor. At my graduation, she asked me, Daddy, are you going to be a real doctor? And I said, honey, I have a PhD in institutional leadership and policy studies. And I went 7 years to a university to get this. And I wrote a 148-page dissertation. Her next question was very simple. Are you going to work at a hospital or not, Dad? And I said, no. She said, then I'm going to have to be the first real doctor in the family. I said, honey, that's Social Security for me. Go right. And she said this, but Daddy, during the day, I'm going to flip houses. Because she watched HGTV all summer long. And she said, I got to flip houses during the day. In the evenings, I'll do surgery. My other daughter, Maya, she's going to be the first in the family to play for the U.S. women's soccer national team, she says. Big time soccer player. And she says she's going to be a marine biologist. So whenever I see something on sharks or whales, I forward it to her so that she can read it. The other day she goes, this one's amazing, Daddy, thank you. So I am blessed. 1 down, 2 to go. And as you can see, I'm surrounded by women, right? I live with my wife. I live with my mother-in-law, 3 daughters, and 2 years ago we got puppies, Lulu and Lila. Yes? So I prayed to God, hey God, give me some male companionship. Some of you might remember this. Look what he gave me. He gave me this little guy right here. Yes. This is my grandson, Noah. Now he calls me Tito. And he said, Tito, when he was a little baby, I said, Mijo, we're going to teach you how to do something very important. Look what I'm going down in history as teaching him. I taught him how to go poop on command. And I said to him, listen, you're the only other man in this family. You take a book with you every time you go. You know what he said to me? My daughter says to me over the Cheesecake Factory dinner, she goes, Daddy, did you have to teach him that? The other day he almost pooped his pants because he couldn't find the giving tree. But it's a man thing. So, listen, these are my grandkids. This is Noah, Emma, and I got one on the way. But I shared with you last time why I opened with my kids. Because here's the deal. My wife and I fell in love when we were both teachers at a school. The custodian introduced us. We saw a vision, yes? That's right. Custodians know what's up. Yes? And it's funny because when two teachers get married, something magical happens, right? We bought our first house. Then we took out insurance policies. This is one of the ones we took out. Just in case their hardworking teachers and administrators get caught up with the challenge of working at a school, our kids and grandkids don't have to worry because no worries, we got it. See, we were two educated individuals. And her family came from El Salvador, my family came from Ecuador, and now we were the first American family living in Southern California. And here's the thing. My wife taught them at a very early age things that they were going to need. We bought a house that had an extra room because we didn't have a big family yet. So what do two teachers do when they have an extra room? We turn one of them into a classroom, yes or no? Had borders and everything, yes? And we had a kidney table in there. And my wife would sit down with my girls and she would teach them English and Spanish. Because can we agree that being bilingual, biliterate today is an asset? And so there we were. Y ahí estaba ella. A ver, repitan conmigo, repitan. Perro, árbol, tree. And so there she was teaching them how to read and write in both English and Spanish. I'm a former U.S. history teacher. So I make sure that my kids know their history. The other day, we were discussing North Korea. And I said, tell me what's happening in North Korea. They had to go look it up. And then they had to report back to me. And then we discussed it. 3-4 years ago, they couldn't tell me the difference between popular vote and electoral college. I said, what do you mean you don't know? They said, Dad, we don't know. Teacher hasn't gotten there yet. So the insurance policy kicked in. So I did what any father would do, yes? PowerPoint during Saturday morning breakfast. And we discussed it. And they got it. When they need help in mathematics, guess what we do? Hire tutors. Because we can afford to pay for tutors to come. See, the last time I was with you, this is what we said. We said, I don't know if you remember this, our job as educators, on this first day, we're all fresh, we're all ready to go, they're pumping you up with these amazing videos, you've done good based on data. Our job continues to be to make sure every one of our kids hits a home run when they leave our schools. They have to. Now, if that's the case, I told you last time I was with you, my kids were born on third base. Because see, they have everything they need at home. My wife and I can give them everything they need. That's not an issue at our school. We don't talk at our home. We don't talk about, are you going to go to college? What do we talk about? Where? Which one are you going to go to? This one's pretty nice. I might have to bring them here to check out what's going on at Grand Canyon. Yes. So here's the thing, my friends. When I became principal of this school, I shared with you last time that I inherited, ready for this, a district just like yours. The district would send me numbers, and this was one of the numbers that they sent. 97% of your kids are free and reduced. I never found the remaining 3%. I looked for them, I just never found them. So let's get real. We were all stuck in the cycle of poverty. And I'm going to be honest with you. We had an amazing faculty and staff. We worked hard, but we had a disease called low expectations for the kids we served. We didn't see future graduates. We didn't see future college attendees or trade school attendees. You know what we were stuck doing? hoping. Everybody repeat after me. I want you to remember this. Say it nice and loud. Here we go. Hope is not a strategy. Remember that one. Because we were stuck hoping. We look at the data from the previous test, the state test previous year, and we do this. I hope they get it together. Look at the English learners. Lo fregaron again, man. Look at it. I hope the ELs get it together. As if Juanito and Maria are going to start off the year like this. We screwed up. We got to do better. Everybody, we must study. If that happens in your school, something's wrong. That's not normal. We were stuck hoping, but we figured it out. We figured it out. Over time, our school, just like your district, just like many of your schools, we started off with a 3% gain, a 5% gain, and then it really caught on. And something happened in 2012. We went from a 70% graduation rate to a 92% graduation rate. And people were talking about us. People were saying, ay, mira your little cholitos, they did good. Because we had a reputation as the ghetto school. We were the barrio school. You know what's crazy? I told this story last time, I'll tell it again. Everyone in our community thought we were never going to make it. And one of the reasons why I knew we were at a barrio school, maintenance guys, you'll appreciate this, is that our clock was stuck at 10:29 for like 7 years. No one ever fixed it. And I would put in requests. Can we please fix the clock? And people would say, we don't have time for that right now. We have to work on your fields, and we have to work on your gym floor. And then something happened one day. One of our kids got accepted to a 4-year Division I school on a soccer scholarship. And it was amazing, because guess who was coming to our school? Telemundo. And when Telemundo announced we will be at Baldwin Park High School tomorrow morning to interview Jaime, who came here from Costa Rica, not knowing any English, and now we're going to see that he's off to Stanford, right? So when Telemundo made that announcement, our superintendent and board members showed up because they wanted to make sure the school looked good. So when you're a principal, you take advantage of that. Yes? Hey, can we trim those bushes? Yes? Okay, cool. I think some paint would be good there because the wall will look nice. So I was milking it, and then it dawned on me, I know how to fix the clock. And I'll never forget, I excused myself because they were going to leave in 10 minutes, and I said, I'll be right back. And as I turned the corner, I started running to the office. Grabbed the student body president. Said, Maria, come with me. We're making announcements. Why so early, Dr. Cruz? Because, Maria, if we do this right, we're going to fix the clock. So we get to the front office. The secretary looks at us and says, you guys are doing announcements kind of early. I said, yeah, watch this. Here we go, Maria. You know what to say? Yes. Let's go on early. Okay, go. Good morning. Welcome to another exciting day of learning here at Baldwin Park High School. Baldwin Park High School, where it is always, and we said it together, 10:29 a.m. The president of the board heard that and looked at the superintendent and said, we got to fix that clock. And within 2 days, maintenance went down and they fixed the clock. But the most exciting thing was when I heard our custodians arguing in 2012 over this. Ready? Where are we supposed to get so many chairs from? There's too many graduates. That's a beautiful problem to have, yes or no? Now here's the thing. Yeah, it was amazing. It was so good. It was a great thing. But here's the best part. I haven't been principal there for a long time. I left almost 6 years ago. And I bumped into them recently at a conference. And we hugged, and how are you? And you know what I found out? The graduation rate today is no longer at 92%. It's at 96.3%. Now, let me tell you why that's significant. It's significant because I'm not the principal there. In other words, here's what we discovered. And here's what I want to share with you this morning. It's not just principals that contribute to an amazing outcome with regard to learning. In a community that is low income, lots of EL kids, and a lot of kids who are going to be the first in their families to graduate, there's something called leadership that has to happen across the entire school district. And if that isn't something that you've embraced just yet, then that achievement gap is going to continue. Because leadership is not just about administration. It's about everyone in the building, clerical, nurses, maintenance, food services, all deciding we are here to make sure that these kids hit a home run. And we're all going to work on this. That's what we discovered. Here's the thing, my friends. This was different today because we embraced this. Our kids were stuck in the cycle of poverty. Have you heard of the cycle of poverty? Yes or no? I hope so, because 95% of your kids are stuck in this cycle. I'm trying to start a movement where we stop calling it free and reduced lunch. That's too pretty. It sounds way too pretty. Let's get real. In the Glendale, Arizona school district, 95% of your kids are stuck in the cycle of poverty. Now, what does this mean? It means this. These kids are growing up poor. And when they're getting to your school, they're not coming in with everything that my girls and grandkids get. Because these hard-working, beautiful families are working 2 or 3 jobs, yes or no, to make ends meet. So I'm sorry if they're not coming in knowing their timetables, or if they're not coming in reading at grade level. What we're going to have to figure out, here's the real task. How do we make sure they do not leave with those inequities? Because when they leave, not at grade level, not being able to do what we would like them to do, they're going to struggle. They're going to grow up, and they're going to struggle to get a job one day. And when they struggle to get a job one day, they are going to be introduced to other cycles. Cycles of drug abuse. Cycles of incarceration. Cycles of spousal abuse. Their families are going to grow up poor, and then the cycle begins over again. So do me a favor. From now on, I think we should start a movement, and your district would be perfect for it. When people ask you what you do for a living, stop saying, I'm food services. Stop saying, I'm maintenance. Stop saying, I'm a teacher. Here's what I think we should say. Ready? Tell me if you like this. You say this, it'll blow their minds. I'm part of an elite team dedicated to the arduous task of breaking children free. That our profession is easy. I'm tired of that crowd. I think we need to play a little offense and stop playing so much defense. And teachers in the audience, I better not ever hear you say, I'm just a teacher. Those two words should never go together. You're part of an elite team dedicated to the arduous task of breaking children free from the cycle of poverty, especially in your school district. People are going to think you're part of a military branch or something. Yes or no? You tell them, yeah, we're pretty bad. We make Navy SEALs. We make doctors. We make engineers. Yes or no? That's what we need to start saying. Here's the deal, my friends. Every one of us in this auditorium, every one of us is here to ensure, not provide. That used to be the 70s and 80s. In the 70s and 80s, we provided. If the kids want, they can go to, no, see, in 2018, we can't no longer provide. We have to ensure that all students learn the essential skills, knowledge, and dispositions needed to succeed in the 21st century at high levels. So let's make sure that we're on the same page, shall we? Here I am. I heard our superintendent say it, Wilson say it. We're in a place in time now where all kids need to learn at high levels. Let's pretend for a moment, shall we? Let's pretend that we are at a dinner party. And we're the only public school educators, only public school employees at this dinner party. And other professionals are there. And then one of them asks us this question. Ready? Hey, like I read something in USA Today that said that you guys are now in the business of making sure all kids learn, like at high levels. Like, what does that mean? Like, what do you mean by all? You can't possibly mean all. So what do you mean by all? And what do you mean by high levels? Take 1 minute to speak to people around you about how you would answer that question. Because everyone has stopped. The DJ has stopped playing music. Everybody's waiting for your answer. What do you say? Take 1 minute to discuss how you would answer that question. Ready? Go. Great superintendent. She walks over to me. She says, "You forgot to thank our bus drivers." Can we please give our bus drivers? And my apologies, bus drivers. I'm just a little rusty. That's all it is. So thank you, transportation. In a minute, we're going to talk about you because you have a huge job in this district, beyond keeping us safe. But we'll talk about you. Okay, so there you are. All kids need to learn high levels. Here's how I want you to think about answering that question in the future. We're in a world now where in 2018, all means any child who's going to be an independent adult one day. I want you to think about that. Any child who's going to be an independent adult one day is who we mean by all. Question: are poor kids going to be independent adults one day? Yes or no? Yes. Are Latino children going to be independent adults one day? Yes or no? Yes. Here's a question for you. Are children learning English as a second language going to be independent adults one day? Yes. Here's one that stumps some people. Children with learning disabilities, are they going to be independent adults one day? Yes, they are. You get it, right? They're not going to have modified rent one day. They're not going to have accommodated bills. True story. One of my good friends is standing outside of a school he just finished working at. And it's a high school, and he missed the traffic. So he wasn't able to escape before the kids got out. So the kids are all getting in their cars, seniors and juniors. One kid, ready for this? Gets in his truck, does a donut in the parking lot, and takes off. He didn't notice it was a police officer right down the street. Pulls him over. The principal says, "Oh man, this kid's a hothead. I better make sure everything's going to be safe." He runs over there and overhears the young man say this to the police officer. Ready? "You can't give me a ticket. I'm special ed." The police officer, very professional, says, "Young man, when you're in there, you're special ed. When you're out here, you're a citizen like everyone else. We'll see you in court." We have to make sure that our special need kids understand that they can learn at high levels and that they are capable and that we're going to make sure they get there. Here's what high levels means: grade level or higher. We're at a point in time now where every one of you in this amazing place has to make sure that every child learns at grade level or higher. It's not easy. I'm going to be the first one to tell you it's not easy. But fourth grade teachers are not going to get upset if the kids they get this year come in reading above a fourth grade level. They might be a little perturbed if they're reading at a first grade level. We have to make sure every team here is focusing on grade level or higher. because that's what's going to be needed to break these kids free from the cycle of poverty. Now, I keep saying 2018. Something is happening in 2018. This is what's happening in 2018. In 2018, it's been determined now that kids need these skills. They need to, if they're going to be successful in today's world, they need to have access to an education beyond high school. Your job is to prepare them for high school. But what you give them will either make or break their destiny. Here's the other thing. Of the 65% of all jobs that need this higher education, Georgetown University found this. That this is what's going to be needed. Now, the next statistic blows my mind. Really blows my mind. Because there was a time, how many of you remember this term? Blue-collar work. Blue-collar work today has changed. According to the ACT, who examined math and reading skills required for electricians, construction workers, upholsterers, and plumbers, they concluded that in today's world, they match what's necessary to do well in a first-year college course. There was a time when we could say, if they don't make it, there's plenty of work for them to be able to do. But we're no longer living in that economy. We're living in a global economy. So ladies and gentlemen, here's what we have. And it's not just happening in your school district. There's an achievement gap taking place all over the country. An achievement gap meaning there are kids that you work with that are part of a particular cohort who are not making it. Now, in your district, true or false, you have a lot of Latino students, yes or no? True or false, you have a lot of kids learning English as a second language, true or false? And if you've never seen one of them grown up, this is what we look like. I'm a walking billboard of what an English learner looks like. And many of you are right there with me. You're smiling because you know that I'm talking about you too. Yes? Let's talk about what's happening to the Latino student population. We want all kids, but because we have so many of them, let's use the first line from A Tale of Two Cities. I'm going to test you now. What's the first line in The Tale of Two Cities? What is it?
Best of times, it was the worst
It was
of
the
times.
best of times, and it was the worst of times. The same thing can be said about what's happening with our Latino families and our Latino students. Check this out. The good news is that a majority of Latino children had families who participated in key learning activities. In 2012, over 90% of Latino children ages 3 through 5 had parents who read and sang to them and taught them numbers. You see, it's a myth that Latino parents don't care about their kids' education. You do know that, yes? It's a myth. That's right up there with Loch Ness Monster and Bigfoot, yes? That's not true. But here's what's unfortunate. That's the best of times. Here's the concern. We have fewer and fewer Latino kids in something called preschool. Do we have any preschool teachers here? Can we please give them some love? That's a serious job. Where are the kindergarten teachers at? Are you in here? Oh, let's give them love too. And where are the special need teachers? Lord knows. Oh my goodness. You know what's going to happen one day, right? When our time comes to leave this earth, every one of us here has a ticket to heaven. You know that, right? Because of what we do here on earth, yes or no? We're going to be standing in line in heaven, trying to get in, and some angel's going to pop on and go, teachers, people who worked in school, get in here. This is waiting in line, get in here. And then that same angel's going to stop and say, wait a minute, preschool, kinder, and special need teachers, you go first. Because it's amazing what you people do. How incredible would it be if every child had preschool? Actually, it would, right? I mean, how long is it going to take before our leaders figure that out? This is good news and bad news. Here's another one. Good news. Latino students were the second largest group represented in gifted and talented education. A lot of you didn't know that. There's a lot of our kids that are making it into GATE programs because they're critical thinkers. They can do really well. Here's the concern, though. Unfortunately, when we look at reading scores and math scores, Hispanic students and African American students score at the very bottom. They're not doing well. See, the best of times and the worst of times. How about this? Over the past decade, tell me this is not good news, the dropout rate has dropped dramatically for Latino students. From 33% in 2000 to 12% in 2014. That's a big deal. And here's the other good news. Ready for this? More Latino students than ever before are reaching post-secondary status. That's great. Here's the concern. No one talks about the fact that there's a college dropout rate. And when we compare Latino students to other ethnic backgrounds, we're not finishing what we start. So what's the message here? We got some work cut out for us. Because it begins with us. It begins with what we do. Now here's the good news. Nelson Mandela said it beautifully. Education is the most powerful weapon which you can use to change the world. He was right. But my friends, let me get a little spooky with you. What if the reason we can't do this is because we've been, ready for this, in a Twilight Zone episode this whole time? Now young people, when you get a chance, Google Twilight Zone, okay? My veterans, do you remember the Twilight Zone? Some of you are going back. Look, some of you, I saw it last night. Rod Serling, the creator of this show called The Twilight Zone, was a master. You know what he was a master of? Making human beings really scary. Let me remind you of some of the episodes. Anybody remember this episode? You're laughing because you remember it. Oh my God. Yes. It was called Beauty is in the Eye of the Beholder. And see, that woman screaming the whole time is wrapped in gauze. Do you remember that? And she's talking about how she grew up disfigured and all the kids make fun of her. So you're thinking, darn, this lady must look really bad. And the entire time, these kind doctors and nurses are helping her, but they never show the faces of the doctors and nurses. And then at the end of the episode, they take out the gauze, and the doctors are the ones that are disformed. And you're like, oh, damn! I didn't see that coming. The surgery didn't work. And then she runs out. It was crazy. Anybody remember this episode? That one was crazy. That man was like the rudest, meanest man on the planet. He didn't like anybody. The only thing he liked to do, ready for this, was read. He just wanted to be left alone to read. But everyone tell him, get back to work, stop reading. And he would get angry. Then one day, he goes down to the basement in some vault. And while he's in there, there's an atomic explosion and everybody dies. He comes out of the vault and goes, this is great. Now I can just read. How horrible, right? He goes to the library and he goes, these books are mine now. And he sets up piles of books that he's just going to spend time reading. He can't wait. And at the end of the episode, he trips, his reading glasses break. He's screwed for the rest of his life. See? That's way better than Chucky, right? And I fly for a living. Every day I'm on a plane, so you better believe I never sit next to the window. Because when he would, young people, just Google it. Just Google it. Here's my question for you, though. What if this entire time, every one of us has been doing what we do, and it's really a Twilight Zone episode? Listen to this. So what if this entire time, those of us who work in schools, teachers, administrators, district office, staff, members of our board, have been fooled in thinking that our passion and commitment to the diverse student population we serve was enough to make a significant difference in the lives of our students and families, only to discover that we had been living in an episode of the Twilight Zone this whole time. There is no doubt that there is passion and commitment in this room. Why? It's August. You're not tired yet. Look at you, you're all wearing, some of you had your shirts dry cleaned, don't lie. You were ready to come in. But what if this entire time, ready for this? I'm going to get deep with you now. The public school system that every one of us is part of was never designed for all kids. Let me get a little deeper with you. Ready for this? What if the reason we have an achievement gap is because the system was designed to produce one? It was designed to produce some kids making it and some kids not. And here you show up with your shirts, ready to tackle the school year in a system never created for this. Let's take a quiz, shall we? This is a book called The American School, written by a gentleman named Joel Spring. And nowadays, I do research, I publish, I study, not because I'm in school, because I'm trying to figure out how do we help school districts like yours figure it out. And as I'm reading this book, it's a historical book on the public school system, it dawns on me, my God, our system was never designed for this. So I turned it into a quiz. I'm going to ask you 4 questions, and then you're going to turn to the person next to you, in front of you, behind you, and you're going to discuss true or false. The question is simple. Why were public schools established? So here we go. I'm going to show you a possible answer to that question, and I need you to discuss with someone next to you, that one's true, or that one's false. Ready? Here we go. Why were public schools established? Possible answer A. Public schools were established to sort and select cohorts of people into specific societal roles. Take 5 seconds. True or false? Next, why were public schools established? Public schools were established to protect the power of the elite by controlling the economic and political ideas of what would be taught to students. True or false? Possible answer C. Public schools were established to ensure the dominance of Protestant Anglo-American culture over other evolving ethnic groups. True or false? And last but not least, why were public schools established? Public schools were established to ensure that all students, including Latino English learner students, learn at high levels. At the count of 3, which one is false? 1, 2, 3. How'd you figure that out? My friends, when we look at the history of our public school system, we're talking Thomas Jefferson, Horace Mann. You do get it, right? They did not write a chapter called, and for your ELs, this is what you do. They did not write a chapter called, for kids with disabilities, here's what you need to do. Back then, those kids didn't exist or didn't matter. Because back then, we didn't need all kids learning at high levels. We had a different economic system. We had something called an agricultural economy, an industrial economy. Today, we have a global economy. For those economies, we needed workers. For this economy, we need thinkers. That's what's at stake. Here's the other reason why people struggle with something called change. Because this man writes a book called School Teacher by Dan Lordy. And guess what he studies? He studies why is change so difficult in public school districts. And he comes up with his theory of something called the apprenticeship of observation. And here's what he says. Ready for this? He says, the reason why these passionate, committed, wearing my shirt on the first day people struggle is because they've been conditioned to believe that there's only one way of doing this. Because why? You all started an internship when you were 6 years old, he said. Think about that. He says, look, educators have been socialized in their field since childhood. and you adopt the norms that you experience. Let me give you an example. I was one of the youngest teachers in my school district back in 1992. And in 1992, I was surprised, pleasantly surprised, that our secretaries were going to order supplies for us. And I was like, oh, cool, I thought I had to buy everything. So I sent in the supplies, and you'll never believe what I asked for. I said, we need a red pen. I need to have a red pen. Now, nowhere in my teaching credentialing program did it say, you need a red pen. In my teaching credentialing program, we watched a lot of Harry Wong videos. But I never was told, you better have a red pen. But you know why I did it? Because my 3rd grade teacher did it. And if she did it to me, I'm going to do it to them in red. And I'm going to use a happy face, a sad face, and a crying face when I need to. I did the things that were done to me. We're the only profession that begins an internship that young. And think about this. We're good students. He studied GPAs for those of us that, when we were in college. And you know what he found? People who go in education have one of the highest GPAs. That is not surprising. We like learning. We like school. I don't know about you, but I'm excited to visit Target as soon as I get home this week. And guess what aisle I'm going to go down? Which one? School section, school supplies. Because why? We love school. You know that they sell highlighters with Post-its that you can rip off from them? I bought 10 of those the other day. I'm not even in school. I'm going to take you way back. How many of you wanted this when you were in school? The 64 Crayolas with the sharpener in the back. People are clapping. I would have killed for that. I told my mom and dad, Mami, papi, ¿me puede comprar? You know what my mom and dad said? ¿Estás loco? Because they were expensive. Remember that? Yeah. And if a kid in your class had it, you'd look at them like, sure. My parents couldn't afford the 64 Crayolas, so they bought me the 8. That didn't even have purple. I had to mix blue and red to get one. We like school, and we've been convinced. So what do we end up doing? Check this out. We end up subconsciously protecting a system that was a personal benefit to us. I'm not going to teach that way. That's not the way Mr. Miller did it with me. Yeah, that was back in 1974. Things have changed. So here's what we end up doing. We end up implementing practices that protect the system instead of change the system. Ooh, I said it, change. Have you noticed that change is very difficult for us? Oh, all of a sudden everybody's quiet, yes? Let me give you some examples. What do you mean, change the schedule? I ain't changing the schedule. We've had that schedule since 1941. I ain't changing the schedule because some speaker said we should change the schedule. Or how about this one? Excuse me, change my lesson plans. Hello? Can't you see they're laminated? We don't change stuff that's laminated. I'm gonna change it. I've been using it since 1973. Those kids learned it. These kids, see? We have a tough time with change. True or false? Do you agree with this statement? The vast majority of public school educators and staff are hardworking individuals who enjoy working in schools because they feel they're making a difference in the lives of students. True or false? Yes, absolutely. Some of you couldn't wait to wake up this morning, yes? But would you agree with this as well? The hardest part of educational reform, change, is not the kids, but the adults. True or false? Yeah. My people in purple up there clapping. Thank you for acknowledging that, yes? Everyone else back there was like, I don't know about that one. Yeah, let me tell you, it's hard. Kids are not going to be marching in front of your school. No to PLC. No to PLC. Kids are not going to be little kindergartners. We don't like RTI. We don't like RTI. That's not doing that. We don't like change. We don't like change. So my friends, let's get real. Resistance to change is something you're all going to have to grapple with. Because true or not, there is something called resistance to change, yes or no? And it doesn't even look like that. It looks more like this. People fake the phone all the time, don't they? They sit right there. Oh, get pretty. PLCs. Yeah. Oh, PBIS. Wow. PBIS. And upside they're thinking, wait till I retire in about 24 years. Then you can try that again. Look, every school that I've worked with deals with something called adult drama. Look, I said I'm your brother from another mother. It's time to get real, yes or no? The real faculty meeting happens after the faculty meeting. In the parking lot, right? In August, oh, that was so cool. In November, all kids can learn my ass. This is too hard. Let's do this. My friends, look. My friend Tom Hart says this. Tell me if you dig on this. You know why change is so hard? 21st century kids are being taught by 20th century adults using 19th century curriculum methods on an 18th century calendar. It's not because we don't love kids. This is great. This is our Twilight Zone episode right here. We're trying to figure things out, and we're using old techniques that we don't want to change. Why? Because it was done to me. You're going to have to deal with this. My friends, and here's the thing. Ready for this? This is you in August. Right there. There you are, trying to fit a square peg into a round hole. You're like, come on, girl, get your shirt on. We can do this. We can help all kids using 19th century techniques. Come on. Sí se puede. Sí se puede. And then, like I'm looking at all of you right now, you're pumped. You're ready to go. You were clapping. People were parking their car going, oh, good. You do. August is not hard. November is hard. In November, I visit schools. And I walk into schools to do coaching or to do working with leadership teams. And I'll walk in and I'll look at you. And this is what I see people you doing. Ready? You're in the classroom like this. And then I see you do this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. That's a 3-day weekend. Every time. Because in November, this is you. Let's talk about this for a minute, shall we? This is not a person who doesn't love kids. This is not a person who doesn't care. You know what this person has? Watch this. Anxiety. Because they're trying to do things old school in a new school setting. You're using old teaching practices on kids that deserve and require something else. And so what ends up happening is we get anxiety. And administrators, you go through this too. Because administrators are trying to figure out how do we do this? And you're using things like, I'm going to try to visit every classroom instead of spending some of my time watching teams collaborate. Because that's the science of our profession is saying right now. And so watch this. Anxiety becomes frustration. Frustration becomes misery. Everybody finish the sentence for me. Misery loves. There you go. Guess what you get then? You get something called adult drama. I call it the telenovela of schools. When hardworking adults who love kids no longer have hope, and they're just trying to survive now. My friends, adult drama, the telenovela of schools is not good. So here's what needs to happen, my friends. We need to know that there's good things happening. There's a school district in California called Sanders School District. Check this out. Very similar to you. They're one of the highest performing school districts in California. Why? Because they have figured out that it's time to embrace the changes that we know can help these kids. It's amazing. There's another place called Hermiston, Oregon. I never thought in my wildest dreams that I'd go to Hermiston, Oregon. I get a call, ready for this, from a guy named Wade Smith. He's the deputy superintendent, a white brother, only speaks English, calls me and says, Dr. Cruz, we need your help. I said, what's the issue? We have more Latino and EL kids than ever before. We need you to come to Oregon to help us. And then I said, please don't say take them back to the LA. Please don't say that. He didn't say that. You know what he said? I love what he said. He said, these are our children now, and we need to help them. So do me a favor, write down in your notes, you don't have to be Latino to help Latino kids. Write that down. You don't have to have been an EL to help EL kids. But here's what I do need you to understand. The same thing Wade Smith understood. This system wasn't created for them. So we're going to have to change the system. And they did. 3 years ago, that school district was named one of the highest performing school districts in Oregon, serving those kids. They made it happen. And 2 weeks from now, I have to go back to this place, Los Lunas, New Mexico. Oh, do we have people from Los Lunas? Wow. Amazing. You know it's a rural community when I show up and the principal who's hired me to come in and work with the school calls me in the morning and says this, hey, you're not going to find Tomei Elementary anywhere on the map, man. So just meet me at the liquor store and follow me in. That's what he said to me. I get to this school that is literally like in a desert. Nothing but sand. And you'll never believe what I see happening. At 7:30 in the morning, there's like this dust storm coming. You people should be familiar with dust storms, yes? And it's all the transportation people dropping off the most beautiful kids you've ever seen. That little girl up here today, with the little net, did you see her? Tell me that's not the cutest child you've ever seen. They had a bunch of those. And these kids all got out with their backpacks. And you know what's incredible? Over time, teachers and administrators would be there to welcome them. There was a time when they just got up, they came out and said, welcome back for another day of learning. And then they go through this arc pass, this little arc that says Tomei Elementary, the best middle school in the whole wide world. That school was at a D- when they were not embracing change. In New Mexico, they grade their schools, letter grades. Last year, they were an A-. The #1 school in the entire district. So now that superintendent has said, if it worked there, where navigation can't even get you, it might work in other places. So the good news is what? The good news is there are people that have figured this out. They have figured out that you're going to have to change your system if you're really interested in breaking free from that Twilight Zone episode. And I'm going to get real with you. I'm right now going to give you the 4 things you're going to have to change in order for you to complement the incredible commitment that I feel in this room. Here's the first one. You're going to have to change some of your policies. You might have policies at a district level, at a school level, at a classroom level that make no more sense anymore and are not there to help all kids learn at high levels. Let me give you one that we had at our school. We had an interesting discipline policy at our school. Ready for this? This was our discipline policy. If kids are caught ditching, they will be suspended. So we catch Juanito at the West Covina Mall. Juanito, we caught you. Vete del carro, let's go. And they bring him back to the assistant principal in charge of discipline. And our assistant principal would say, Juanito, ditching school, huh? You're suspended for 3 days, young man. And Juanito would go like this, really? That policy made no more sense. You're gonna take an illegal behavior and make it legal. Really? Oh, I'm gonna get deep with you. Some of your grading policies might not make sense anymore. But all of a sudden the teachers are laughing. Oh, wait, you're talking about us now? Yeah, you know what? Some of those policies might, maybe kids getting zeros and not ever having a chance to prove that they've learned what they didn't know 3 weeks earlier, maybe that doesn't make sense anymore. And I have research to back that up. When you get a moment, do me a favor, Google this article by Doug Reeves. It's called The Case Against Zero. He's a mathematician, and he says it makes no sense. Between an A and a B, it's 10 points. Between a B and a C, it's 10 points. Between a C and a D, it's 10 points. And then there's a 60-point gap. How does that make sense? Some of your policies might need to change. Here's another one. Your practices. There are practices that may need to change. For example, maybe the practice of people believing I'm just a bus driver needs to change. You're not just a bus driver. First of all, you're part of an elite team dedicated to the arduous task of breaking children free from the cycle of poverty. And guess what bus drivers are? They are the first face many kids see representing our district. Yes or no? Yes. So, in school districts that have figured this out, this is how the bus drivers contribute. They go like this. Welcome, young man. Welcome, young lady. Even if that kid has that face, you kill him with kindness. Because at some point, love will win frustration. Here's another practice that some schools have figured out. Ready? It doesn't make any sense that we give the most challenging students to the new teachers, while we, the veterans, work with these kids. Makes no sense. Imagine if lawyers did that. Hey, Luis, congratulations, out of law school. All right. Hey, your first case is the OJ trial. We don't do that anymore. Imagine if doctors did that. Hey, man, you made it to medical school. Good job. Hey, your first surgery are conjoined twins. They're waiting for you over the office. But we do it all the time. Hey, I've earned my place here. I've been here for 10 years. So you teach those kids. Because we all had to earn it. No. That makes no sense. Why should the best, most experienced people not be working with the most challenging kids? Are you following me out there? Why do you think teachers bring one person clap, a new teacher? That's a really good thing. I don't know about you, that's making sense to me. Some of our hardworking veterans just went like this. I like them up to this point. There are procedures that are going to have to change. Our custodians embrace a new procedure. And I had the best head custodian ever. Se llamaba Jaime. Jaime had little broken English. And I'll never forget, when we started this movement, you know what Jaime said? He said like this, Dr. Cruz, I have something to say. I said, yes, go ahead. And he said this at a faculty meeting. He said, just because we're poor does not mean we have to be dirty. We all went, damn. So he said, from now on, we, after the kids eat lunch, and they leave a mess there, all the custodians are going to start a new procedure where we line up and we sweep the campus. And at the same time, we're going to teach these kids how to throw their trash away. Most custodians don't do that. They did. And we had to do something called tough love with our kids. Have you all seen that? How there will be a trash can next to a kid eating and they won't throw it away? Does that happen here? It doesn't drive you crazy. So he calls me one day and he says, Dr. Cruz, meet it. They're the cheerleaders and the athletes. They all eat there. Watch what they do. And I would see them. I said, it's time to address it. Let's do it. So we walked over there. We said, cheerleaders, athletes, because they all hung out together. I said, my friends, count with me, okay? 1 trash can, 2 trash cans, 3. Everybody count. They all counted. I said, I need you to throw your stuff away. They're not here to pick up after you. Let's go. It worked for 2 days. By day 3, they were back at it. So me and the head custodian looked at each other and said, it's time. We said, yes. So here's what we did. We bought yellow tape that said litter bug, enclosed for litter bug infestation. And we closed that entire area. Now, high schools are very territorial. That's their spot. So it was so sad to see these cheerleaders and athletes coming out going, hey, what the heck? And we said, sorry, it's closed for litter bug infestation, so they're not throwing their trash away. So go find somewhere else to eat. Pobrecito, they were all walking around the campus like this. I had my homeboys over there like this. And the kids walked over there and they said, hey, get out of here, we're clean people. After those 3 days, they learned never again to do that. These were procedures that we changed. And the last one is a big one. Ready for this? People's mindsets haven't changed. Because too many of our mindsets were stuck in that thing called a fixed mindset, and we weren't growing. And let me be very clear. How many of you are familiar with that whole fixed versus growth mindset? You know she wasn't talking about students only, right? She was talking about adults. So my friends, here's the deal. It turns out leadership is a big deal. Very quickly, here's what you need to understand. Now, I just saw it happen. I just said leadership, and some of the teachers looked at their principals and said, hey, pay attention, they're going to talk about No. Everyone here is a leader. This is what these schools do with regard to leadership. Check it out. There are 4 things that schools that I've seen make it, break children free from the cycle of poverty do. Here they are. First, leadership is approached as a collective rather than individual process. The reason why this team is going to make it, it's not because they hired a great superintendent, and she did not pay me to say that. It's because she also has a board. This is a team. They're going to figure it out together. They're going to figure out what do they need to give you so that you can make this happen. Bus drivers are leaders. Maintenance, custodian, food services, leaders. And especially, ready for this, teachers. You have earned your place at the grown-ups table. You are leaders. So here's what I can tell you. When teams work on this, amazing. Here's the other thing. Leaders, you, create a sense of urgency to be successful, even if this involves uncomfortable change. I need you to understand the difference between something called uncomfortable and another word I'm going to introduce you to. Unreasonable. Those 2 things are different. Just because something is uncomfortable doesn't mean it's bad. Here's the other thing that they figured out. Leaders engage their adult community in learning and implementing something called the science of our profession. Every profession has a science. We have a science too. How do you take a school that is 95% kids stuck in the cycle of poverty and make great things happen? Good news, there's a science. Your job is to learn the science. And then the most revolutionary thing you can do, ready for this, is called implement the science. Has anyone figured this out yet? Diets work when you do them. But if you don't do them, they don't work. And last but not least, leaders will focus not only on restructuring their school districts, but on reculturing the staff. Leaders get other people to think differently so that they feel different and are willing to do different. So let's take the first one. The first one is what? There's got to be a team of people ready to go. Is there a difference between a team and a group? Yes or no? Yes. Let's pretend for a minute. Let's pretend for a minute that all of us here have been invited to Las Vegas to take part in Van Halen's reunion tour. Yes? Young people, Google Van Halen when you get a chance. We go to Caesar's Palace. We get in the elevator. None of us know each other. Are we a group or are we a team? A group. Elevator breaks down on the 12th floor. What do we become? A team. Because now we have what? A common goal. We need teams at your school. And teams look like this. This is a team. Administrators, staff, and teachers coming together to do what? To figure out how to get out of the Twilight Zone episode. to figure out which policies do we need to change, which practices do we need to change, which procedures, and how do we get people to not just hope, but do. This team, Santa Maria High School, came up with this purpose statement. The purpose of the guiding coalition at Santa Maria High School is to unify the staff with the development of best practices in a mutually accountable school environment, which undeniably increases learning for all. Every school has to have a team like this. A mini generator that's going to turn on to support people when they're feeling that in November. Here's what it looks like at the elementary level. This is the principal right there with the little bun. Great principal, but she can't do it by herself. She needed teacher leaders. Everyone else is a teacher leader. Some are new, some are veteran, and their secretary is on their team. And together, guess what they do? She's not there to take notes only, let me be clear. Because I don't know if you figured this out. Secretaries know what's up. And they can contribute toward what do we need to do to be successful. They come up with this. The purpose of Black First Guiding Coalition is to guide, unite, and empower all staff to collaboratively take risks based on mutual accountability and best practices to ensure what? To ensure what, everybody? All students learn. I first asked them, do you have a leadership team? They said, yes, we do. Tough question. So I went and asked the teacher not on the Guiding Coalition leadership team, hey, what's the purpose of your leadership team? Do you know what that teacher said to me? We got a leadership team. They weren't doing much leading. This every school is going to need. If your superintendent asked, what advice would you give at every school? I'd say, man, you've got to have the right team of people. Teachers, staff, and administrators who come together to figure it out. And they don't stop ever until they start seeing the success that we all want. These teams are incredible. If you don't have this team, you're in trouble. A little bit. When I was 23 years old, I had just finished my first year of teaching. And you'll never believe what happened. My 5th grade team nominated me after to be on the leadership team. I went home and told my mom, Mommy, me nominaron para ser parte del leadership team. My mom said, ah! She got so happy, she called Ecuador. A mi hijo lo nominaron para ser parte del leadership team. They raged for me. It was amazing. And then I said, Mom, but I don't know if I got it. Now, I knew I was going to get it. Every grade level needed one. I was the only one nominated. So the next day, I'm not even making this up. It was a Tuesday. I go home to have dinner with my parents. Mom, I got it. And she comes out with a cake. And all my uncles and aunts had driven in from everywhere. I thought they were going to break out with mariachi, right? Mijo, we're so proud of you. And then as we're eating cake, there's leches cake, yes? They asked me this question, ready? So, Mijo, you're going to get paid more? You're getting a company car? No. But you're getting an office, right? A classroom? Ah, good. See, because back then, I wanted to be part of the leadership team. You know why? Because back then, they didn't focus in on all kids. You know what we were? We were the committee. Like, if Mary's going to have a baby, we'll make sure to organize it. Hey, Matt's retiring and he's never been Teacher of the Year. Let's nominate him this year. It's the kind of stuff. There was tough economic times, and I became a hunter and gatherer for my 5th grade team. So God forbid a 3rd grade teacher left a ream of paper on the coffee machine while she was in the restroom. This is what I do. Shoot, it's our paper now. I got his paper. White. And then we did the thing that most leadership teams still do. We became conveyors of information that had been written down on a memo. So this is what I would do. Hey, my 5th grade team, I'm going to go to a meeting with the principal. You guys need anything? Okay, cool. Then I'd go. And this is what traditional schools do who are still stuck in the cycle of poverty. Ready? This is what they do. Okay, so I got all of you here. Good. Hey, they're coming. Superintendent and government next Tuesday. So maybe 8 and 11. So we're teaching between 8 and 11. All right. Next week. The following a fire drill. Don't confuse both. Remember, drop and cover versus drop and roll. Okay, we're collecting cans for the poor kids. So collect cans, and on the last day, we'll give them right back to the kids. Hey, they're coming. I'm going to report now. They're coming. So make sure you're teaching. Take notes. Come on. Between 8 and 11:30. Would it kill you to wear a tie, brother? Come on. Hey, and remember, drop and roll versus drop and cover. We'll get the cans, and then give them back to the kids. Yeah? This is not leadership. This is called managing your school. Yes or no? We don't have time for this. You know what these guiding coalitions do? They ask themselves this question. Last year we had 16% of our ideal kids make it. This year we have a goal of at least 25. What does everybody in this building need to be able to produce that? That's what these teams do. How about this one? 7th grade writing is atrocious at our school. We got to figure this out. So let's get together and figure out what our staff needs to be able to do this. They're going to need both support and accountability to pull this off. That's what these teams do. That's why we have these teams. And maybe you get a task force. One person on the leadership team is going to say, you know what? Too many of our kids aren't learning, so we're going to create a task force. And the task force is going to follow these 7 steps because we need to make sure that we have the right people addressing the right problem. You see, there's a laser-like focus on learning. If you don't have one of these teams, what are you waiting for? You need one. Because this work doesn't happen by itself. Number 2, leaders create a sense of urgency to be successful, even if this involves embracing uncomfortable change. Let me say it again. There's a difference between uncomfortable and unreasonable. For some of you who grew up during the time as teachers, like I did, where we were all in isolation, this whole new word, have you heard this word? Collaboration. Collaboration is going to be very uncomfortable for you, but it's not unreasonable. Because unreasonable would be people making you collaborate on your own time. I asked our superintendent, do our teachers have built-in time for collaboration? The answer was yes. This is going to require us to embrace some. Because see, here's what I've noticed. A lot of people have different definitions of what it means to be professional. Let me break it down. I'm going to give you 5 possible definitions of professional. You know which one is not the right answer. First one, has expertise in a calling requiring specialized training and often long and intensive preparation. A professional is someone who conforms to the technical and ethical standards of profession. Someone who demonstrates a high standard of professional ethics, behavior, and work activities, puts the needs of the client ahead of his or her own interests. A professional is someone who participates for gain or livelihood in an activity, often engaged by amateurs, for example, a professional golfer. Or is a professional someone who is free to do whatever the hell he or she damn well pleases. That's not the answer. Yes. D. In our profession, we can't do whatever the heck we want. There's a science that we have to understand. And you know what? I read this book a while back. It's called The Encore Effect. Amazing book. You know what the book talks to you about? How you can produce an encore in everything you do. Imagine teachers on a Friday. You're done teaching. You go out to your car at 5. They gather around your car. They're going, encore teacher. That was amazing. Woo! You kick butt. Imagine. Well, the book defines professional as this. Someone who cares more about the client than the client does. If you really are about your kids, then you're going to embrace being uncomfortable. because we're trapped in a Twilight Zone episode right now, and we need to get out. My friends, the kind of remarkable performance is not the result of an impulse that occurs only when conditions are perfect. It comes about because the professional works to create the right conditions and to overcome any obstacle. And now we got to get to this one. Leaders engage their adult community in learning and implementing the science of our profession. There is stuff out there that can help you on your journey. If you have not read an article called The 7 Correlates of What Effective Schools Do by a guy named Lawrence Lazat, you can Google that and you'll get it. And you and your team should sit down and say, are we doing this at our school? Or how about this one called the 90-90-90 School Study, that looked at 90% poor, 90% students of color, but 90% or higher evidence of learning. Or how about something called Visible Learning for Teachers by John Hattie? This guy, guess what this guy did? He's from New Zealand. He decided to quantify how much of an effect is given when you do certain things. You'll never believe which one produced the highest level of learning for kids. When teachers and staff believe that these kids can. It has an amazing effect. And some of you know something called professional learning communities. And here's something else you need to know. If you are not embracing your parent population, then you are contradicting the science of our profession. It turns out that research says that parents matter. I can read research over and it says, look, when parents are involved and when teachers and administrators get them involved, great things happen. I got to get deep with you. I got to listen very carefully to what I'm going to share with you. Because I cannot not address this and be true to this message. We have a lot of people in very high places today saying things about the community you serve that's got this community scared and afraid. Yes or no? Yeah. They're scared. They're afraid. I never thought in my wildest dreams I could and explain there's a difference between a dreamer and a criminal. And I'm bringing this up. I'm bringing this up because this is the community you serve. Are you following me? This is not the place to debate whether you love our president or not, but this cannot be denied. Things have been said that have been hurtful to the community you work in. And if you are not actively letting parents know you are welcome at our school, we care about you, then what's going to happen is parents are going to think that's not a place that's accepting of us anymore. Part of our science is reaching out to our parent community and saying, look, things are being said, but this is a safe place for you. At our school, we figured this out. You know what we created at our school? Something called the Baldwin Park High School Parent. Here they are in action. Because we had too many discipline problems at first. And guess what we needed? Parents to help us. So we reached out to our parents and we said, Padres de familia, su ayuda. Queremos que su escuela sea la más agradable para todos los niños. We need a safe school. Will you help us? 40 charm class showed up. And they said, a ver qué necesita. All we did was reach out to them. And then we gave them the padres. And we gave them, and we trained them in twos. You're going to walk around the school. You can't touch the kids. But when you see something or smell something that shouldn't be on our campus, you let us know. They showed up. We had a schedule for them. And they would walk around our campus. And then once in a while I'd hear on the radio, this is Patron. We are walking in the G home. We smell marijuana. Hurry! And our campus security agents, who couldn't be everywhere, would get there. And we would bust the two kids smoking a doobie. because the bathroom is where the action goes down. Yes or no, Derek? There they were. Mr. Bozigian, a retired senior citizen who didn't even have kids at our school, showed up and goes, I want to do that. I go, you have kids at the school? No, I just need purpose in life. I said, Mr. Bozigian, come on in. All he asked was, can I put my rocking chair next to the bathroom? I said, of course you can. There he was. And when kids would go in the bathroom, like 9 of them at one time, this is what we do. Oh, boys, let me get the door for you. Go ahead. Okay. And he'd close it, and I'd watch him. He'd go, 1, 2, 3. They'd go in. Hey, boys, are we done? No hanging out in the bathroom. Everybody out. Wash your hands, please. Amazing. It's a myth that our Latino parents don't care about their kids' education. Here's the question we need to explore. How have we reached out to them? How have we let them know we want you to be partners with us? How are we going to handle this Twilight Zone episode together? We also had a staff member that was amazing. Oh, this is what our chief of police said because of the parent control, what happened at our school. Oh, we had data, baby, because remember this, in God we trust, everyone else needs data. Yes? So, at our school, one of the ways that we started looking at who's learning and who's not is we came up with a 3-color system. Green, yellow, red. And our teachers, at the end of every grading period, would look at how many kids are green, meaning they are credit current, they are on their way to graduating. How many of them are yellow, meaning they're getting stuck? Or how many of them are red, meaning they're about to fail and become a statistic? And you'll never believe who took off at this. One of our classified staff, her name was Diana Rubina. She was our home liaison. And this is how I know leadership is not just administration and teachers. She is the definition of a leader. So she comes to my office and says, Luis, I've been listening. You guys are all focusing on your kids through 3 colors. Green, yellow, red. I'm noticing that you're giving your greens a lot of celebration, your yellows support, and then your red kids lots of support. I want to do the same thing. I said, how are you going to do that, Diana? She said, because while you're dealing with the green, yellow, and red students, I'm going to deal with the green, yellow, and red families. So when there's a green family out there, they're going to get a message from me on the phone that says, Felicidades, sigan adelante, keep going, your child is doing great. When there's a yellow family, though, I'm going to say, we need you to come in to check out what class your child is failing. But when it's a red family, I'm going to visit the homes if I need to, because these are the families that never show up to parent conferences. Teachers, have you noticed that the wrong kids show up to parent conferences? The green kids are the ones that always show up, yes or no? So you know what she did? She said, we need a special night for just red families. And if they don't show up, this was her speaking, then we're going to their home. Because we're not going to let these kids fail on our watch. That is the definition of leadership. The last one is about changing our mindsets. And here's where I'd like to finish. Because you've been sitting for a while. I appreciate how attentive you've been. But you've got borders to put up back in your class. What have we done to this word, my friends? ELL. When people in our profession see that acronym, they don't do it. They get very frustrated because what we've done to this word is we've turned it into a negative thing. English language learners. I'm a grown-up English language learner. When I walked into the school, I only spoke Spanish. And I think I'm okay. And just like that, I can do this. This is powerful when kids are seen not as a deficit, but as an asset. So here's what I'm going to ask you to consider. Maybe we should stop calling them ELLs, because this causes us to have a fixed mindset. Maybe what we need to do is call them HTB kids, halfway to bilingual. That sounds a little bit more positive. Or how about this one? This might be a good one. Let's call them FBABs, future bilingual and beautiful students. Or how about this one? This one's really cool. BLTs. How many BLTs did you get this year? I got 12 BLTs. Oh, you're so lucky. Why? Because what are BLTs? Bilingual leaders of tomorrow. And that way, all of us could one day wear shirts that said, I am an SBAB. Sexy because I'm bilingual. That would be really good. Really good. This was me. Can you find me in the picture? Let me help you. See right there? That's me. Why are you laughing? That was a quick laughter over here. Thank God they invented contacts, yes? And that, my friends, is my favorite teacher of all time, Miss Whaley. A white woman who did not speak any Spanish from the state of Wisconsin. My favorite teacher. Let me give you, Wisconsin's like, yeah. Let me give you, anybody remember The Sound of Music? That woman? That was her. She was totally that woman. And something happened to me in 3rd grade. Ready for this? I was going through something called assimilation blues. I all of a sudden went to school in 3rd grade and didn't want to be Latino anymore. I was like, and then when she took roll, I'll never forget how she took roll. She said, Luis, I raised my hand and I said, Luigi. And she looked at me and said, you want to be called Luigi? I said, she was okay, Luigi. And when all the kids went out to recess, she said, Luigi, can I talk to you for a minute? And I went. And I'll never forget what she did. This is how incredible we are, right? Because I'm 47 years old now. I still remember this day. She came down on one knee, held my hand, and said, sweetie, you're not Italian. You are Latino. And this is what she said. Check this out. I love your name. And Luis, you speak more Spanish than English, correct? I said. She said, listen to me. I'm going to teach you English. But you have to do me a favor. Don't forget your Spanish. Because one day, Luis, you're going to know English and Spanish. And you're going to be twice as smart as everyone else. I just need one favor from you. I'll never forget she said this. I get emotional because I still remember what she smelled like. I still remember, right now I'm envisioning what was up on the board. I still remember that day in September, because back then we started school in September. Yeah. And I'll never forget what she said. This is what she said to me. But I need you to do me a favor. I need you to teach me Spanish. Yeah. Because that's a beautiful language and I need to learn it. After that day, I was never Luigi again. And she taught me how to embrace this new, amazing, beautiful language called English. And I grew up to be a very, very bicultural person. I don't believe in assimilation, but I do believe in something called acculturation. And taking the best of what my parents gave me, along with what this amazing country that we live in gave me as well. And as she taught me, I would practice at home. Because here's what a lot of you don't know. Those of us who grew up in a Spanish-speaking home, at the age of 5, we became translators for our parents. Yeah. And on Saturday nights, my grandmother and I would sit down and watch TV, and I became the #1 translator for 2 shows on Saturday nights. The Love Boat and Fantasy Island. Young people, Google Fantasy Island. She had a crush on Ricardo Montalban. And I would translate for her. ¿Qué dijo? ¿Qué dijo? El avión. El avión. It was amazing. It's because of that woman and people like you that I joined the best profession in the world. Can you find me in the picture? There I am. This is me as a teacher's aide, recruited from the supermarket because a bilingual director heard me speak Spanish and asked me, would you be interested in education? I said, no, I want to work in produce. I had 2 goals when I was 17 years old. 2 goals. Number 1, lower my car. Yeah. And number 2, some of you will remember this, buy a pull-out stereo. Then she said the words that changed my life. We pay $10 an hour. And I fell in love with these kids. This young lady, the one with the third to the top, she became an administrator at LA Unified School District. 4 years ago, the little girl sitting down, see the little African-American girl and the little white girl next to her? The little white girl became a nurse, and the little African-American child went on to go to law school. That's when I last heard from her. I have no clue what happened to the kid holding the sign on the right. Hi, Joey. My friends, let me end with this. Let me give you something to think about. Because of people like you, we broke free from the cycle of poverty. I'm not poor. I get paid well doing what I do. I write books now. My family is never going to have to worry about, can we make ends meet? We're done living paycheck to paycheck. We don't do that anymore either. We actually have a savings account. But here's the most beautiful thing. I love what I do. It's not work for me. And because of people like you, you gave me choices. I have choices of where I'm going to live, what I'm going to drive, and what I'm going to do. You people helped me break free from the cycle of poverty. Because when you grew up poor, those of you who grew up poor, I didn't know I was poor until I got to college. When people were talking about, I had my own room, and I was like, I shared a room with my grandmother and brother all my life. My friends, here's how I want you to remember me. This is how I knew I was getting older. When kids started dressing like this, I knew I was getting older. I pierced my ear in college once. I thought that was cool. I grew my hair long in college. I thought that was cool. But when kids stopped using a belt, I was like, oh no. Someone named Pedro Noguera, an amazing professor from UCLA, who writes about equity. Here's he, he's a handsome cat. I have a man crush on this dude because of his knowledge, not because he's handsome, but because of his knowledge. I heard Pedro Noguera say this once at a conference, and this is how I want to end our talk. He said this: our children will elevate their pants when we elevate their minds. Go out this year, elevate minds, and break these children free from the cycle of poverty. Very quickly, in October, we're having a conference near Los Angeles on EL Latino Kids. Is that something you're interested in? I welcome you. Thank you for allowing me to be your opening keynote speaker. Have a great year. Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Cruz. We're about to enter the cycle of chocolate. We have many for you. Now, you might think that would be the end. But it's not. Just a couple more important pieces. First, we're going to be releasing you just a few schools at a time. The bus bay is set up, and so we will announce that in just a second. But before we do that, in your welcome backpack, somebody has a golden ticket. Who is it? Is it you? Come on. hoping we can like that. Okay, here we go. We are done, but the first group to be released are the folks from the district office and GSA, support services, IAMS, and Discovery and Buy-Side North. You guys head out the back. And we'll let you know when the rest of the groups are ready. So sit tight, just socialize with each other. And can all principals and assistant principals please report to the stage?